We got Keith for this episode of the Shea Anything podcast. Lots to discuss as this team continues to lose some big games against the Cardinals. Keith was there in the booth. We'll talk about that with him. Also, some very fun little anecdotes from his time in the booth. We will revisit them as always. It all starts right now. Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Doug Williams and Keith Hernandez with you on this episode. A reminder to subscribe to the Shea Anything podcasts wherever you're listening. We appreciate it. And Shea Anything is brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network. More people rely on only on Verizon. Once again, on SNY's air, weeknights, 6 o'clock, baseball night in New York. It's the show that I host. We have a great panel every night. We discuss all things New York baseball. We hope you join us there. Keith is fresh from doing a game from a different vantage point. I want to play what it was like wherever Keith was sitting, which we'll get into, what it was like to see a ball sail over his head. Here it is.
I think he was taking aim at us, boys.
That's all right. All night long. It's very weird looking at the ball in flight from this angle.
Gary made a joke, Keith, that you might have thought you could catch that one off the bat. What was it like seeing the ball flight from that vantage point?
It's definitely different. I mean, we're sitting there like front row and left center field, balls up in the air, and it was just a different angle altogether, even on regular fly balls in right field, center field. Not two nice catches in the outfield. The one in center field by the Cardinals, and obviously the big catch by Newt Bar. So it was a different perspective. It was M&M's last night all the way.
Oh, that's right. You were right. You were right over the very cocky looking, I think, red M&M.
Yeah, we were in the M&M section, so it took me all my energy not to have but two handfuls of the M&M peanuts.
You didn't have any?
I had two handfuls, and it was hard not to have three.
Two handfuls that's a good portion. I think peanut M&Ms are just a good, quick energy pick me up. That's right. That's my go-to, like for a long flight. There was another funny moment, Keith. It was top of mind, at least for me. I'm sure a lot of people watching at home, because episode 1 of Once Upon a Time in Queens is all about the kind of the lead up to the 86 team. And you're heavily featured in episode 1. And there's some great comedic timing with people describing the kid, Gary Carter, and how he was viewed as like the leadership guy. And then quick cut to you being like, he was one of the most hated guys in the major leagues. But along that same vein about Gary Carter was a great story on last night's broadcast. We'll listen to it now.
I remember Carter hit the home run and did the old fist pump. And Palmer drilled Strawberry. I remember being at the bottom of that pile with you, and David Palmer was talking to you. He was screaming at me. And I said, I remember what I said. I said, David, Darryl didn't do anything. I go, we understand that kid upsets you with that. He goes, hit kid next time, and no one's going to bother you. Oh my God.
You really said that?
I did. I said, if you hit Darryl, I was out of that dugout in a heartbeat because I knew Darryl was going to get drilled. And Darryl's perfectly innocent. I just said, hey, drill Gary next time. Why Darryl?
I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
I'm a great teammate.
Yeah, really.
So that was a conversation happening like in the pile.
I was the first one out of that dugout because I knew he was going to drill Strawberry. And I remember cutting across getting right by the first base line because we were at Shea. And Palmer saw me and he was making a bolt for the third base line, so I cut him off. And I had no intention of hurting him. And we just went down, and we were down, and he was screaming, he's showing me up. And I said, I just told him, look, I understand. Kid has that effect with all that stuff. And, but Darryl didn't do anything. Just next time kid gets up again, hit him. No one's going to come out of the dugout. We get it. So, Darryl didn't do anything. So, yes, it's a true story.
And would you say as a teammate, you were protective of Darryl?
No, I wasn't. He stood up on his own 2 feet. No, not at all.
And the other question, Keith, that I had, I guess more from the the documentary than your story, but it's, they're connected, obviously. How long did it take you and Gary, as such different people, to kind of channel your energies, whatever you want to call it, into like working together for the same goal?
It didn't take anything. When we got Carter, it was a bad choice of words in the documentary. I cringed. I haven't seen it yet, but when I said everybody hated him, everybody kind of not everybody, but a lot of people just didn't like Gary. Hate's a strong word. I wish I hadn't used it, because Gary had all the fist pumping, and that's the way he played with all that, and it just irritated a lot of people around the league. When we traded for him, I knew that it was the important piece to get a veteran catcher with our staff and an all-star catcher to boot. Even better, and a right-handed bat, even better, power bat. So I was determined that the press was going to wait for Gary and I to have a problem. They were waiting, and I knew it, and it wasn't going to happen. So I welcomed him with open arms, and that was from the get-go. There was never anything that any animosity or anything like that. We're here to win, and I welcomed him, and I was determined. There was never going to be a story, which the press would have loved if there would have been a story like, Reggie Jackson and Thurman Munson. That's what it would have been. And particularly with that team winning 108 games, and maybe we wouldn't have won 108 games if I decided to be testy or let it bother me. Gary had he came to the park every day and played hard. I think I made that clear. What I
understand. Yeah, you did.
My brother told me he was a professional, a hustler, and he wanted to win. No one's perfect, and I certainly am not. And we all got along. We all took each other for who we were, and accepted that.
Well, I think you make that point clear in the documentary, as you said, like the fact that as soon as you saw that Gary Carter just wanted to win, and that was the whole reason that you stayed in New York, that you chose to remain there because you thought there was winning down the line. And as soon as Gary arrived, you realized it was the final piece, and then you were fine. I think, right. Whatever word you decided to use about how he was viewed before you knew him as a teammate is more insignificant than, how you guys ended up pulling together and winning a championship. I think that's what Mets fans will appreciate. And anyone who's a fan of Gary Carter will be a fan of Keith Hernandez for that same reason. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. And I thought Haji's appearance in the first episode, I know that was the only detail you had told me, that he made an appearance and he gets some good FaceTime. So it's good to see Haji again being the superstar.
I guess he got FaceTime in the end too. I don't know. I'm going to watch it today.
So Keith, I want to talk Javi Baez because I have a conspiracy theory that you've been listening and watching the same games that I have, where Gary's fascinated because Javi Baez, and you are too, Javi Baez keeps taking pitches suddenly. Like, I think his agent was like, hey, Javi, contract year, the only knock against you is that you don't take walks and that you're super aggressive and you strike out all the time. Take some walks down the stretch here and you're going to get 20 more million. That's my theory. Maybe he's really good, which he is, and he's become a different player for that reason. But is there any part of you, as you've watched this stretch and kind of how clutch of a player he is, that has thought that maybe he could be a Met long-term, that he could fit here?
Well, there's a lot of financial issues right now going on, so I don't know, what they're going to do and how deep the pockets are. He's a very fine player. Maybe he just kind of burned out in Chicago. They won the championship, an incredible championship, historic, and they haven't been the same since. Everybody's performance on that team went down, and he can go that way and hit with power. He doesn't have to pull. And that's the way he used to hit when he came up. So he went back into his old habits. So I have no idea what his agent told him, or the fact that it's a new environment, and he got a rude awakening with the fans here, and I better go out here and play and do what I can do. He's a tremendous player. He's a great base runner. He's smart, and knows how. He's a great fielder, great range, and he knows how to play the game. And he can hit. He's got the numbers to back it up. So obviously, he has become more selective. There's no question about it. It is very apparent. He walked 3 times. So the other day.
It's no one, in fairness, no one knows what his agent told him. That was made up by me. It's just, I've never seen somebody go from like career-long MO. This is how this guy has had success to, really being select. He was swinging at pitches in the other batter's box very frequently. And he's such a good player that he gets away with it. And if he wants to add getting on base to that repertoire, that's an impressive approach.
I don't want him to walk too much. I want him swinging the bat.
You're right.
He's too dangerous. Even though we're not winning, the team's not winning. You watch how Wainwright pitched the lineup. Conforto is still a threat. If you make a mistake, he's having a bad year, and not a power year, but you make a mistake, he can hurt you. And Lindor is not having a good year, but he make a mistake, he can hurt you. And you got Baez and Alonso. You've watched how Wainwright pitched him. They pitched him very, very carefully, and they were very constant. The concentration level I could see was, okay, I've got 4 guys in the middle of this order here that I got to be careful with and pitch tough. And it was fun to watch. But back to Baez, he can go the other way and go out of any ballpark. And he just has to pick his spots when he wants to pull. He just got out of his game, and for whatever reason, he became unbridled like he was when he was young, and he strikes out a lot. And I got to think that his manager with the Cubs, when made the comment that we swing for home runs, we don't play baseball, we swing for home runs. I think that was directed at Javi back then. But I don't mind him striking out. I don't want him to lose his aggressiveness because he's too much of a threat, and we need his bat in the lineup. We need him to be doing the things he's doing right now.
I think it's interesting that you feel that way about him, because I know that today's hitter and how little they care about striking out. You and I have talked about that the way that hitters look at that these days bothers you, but with him, it seems like you feel differently. Is that because he's just got the ability to do so many other things at the plate, and it's just his style?
I want to give him a lot of rain, let him run. Obviously, if he in the beginning when he was here, it was overboard, but he's settled in now, and let him swing the bat. He's got to swing the bat. He's not going to help us walking, but he can't go out of the strike zone. And if he stays what he's doing, they'll have to throw him strikes. They'll have to. Or whoever's hitting behind him now, I have no idea. It's either McNeil or Conforto.
It's all over the place. Yeah.
So, pitchers are saying, I'm not going to let him beat me. Well, he can't swing at a pitch 5 feet outside, 3 feet outside, and be productive. He's going to be a big out. I think he finally realized that. So take your walk, be ready for a pitch, and get after it. If they throw it in the strike zone, I wouldn't. With the people behind him, I wouldn't pitch to him. He's hitting over 500 right now, but it was like last night was 18 for 36. You going to pitch to him? No way. But if I'm a pitcher, I'm going to pitch him, see if he's going to swing at that pitch.
Right.
He may help me get him out. So take your walk. That's why he's walked 3 times. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
So you're right. Maybe that's just part of him getting hot. where when he's not feeling his best at the plate, he swings at those pitches. And when he's feeling real good and he's waiting for his pitch and feels confident at the plate, he lets those balls go. And it's not a conscious decision. It's just he's feeling good at the plate. So that's a good way to look at it. Once again, you're listening to the Shea Anything podcast, brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on, only on Verizon. Keith, it's the Mets fan base, I would say. I only have a sense for the Mets fan base on Twitter. That's a small segment of the population. But they've just about had it with Luis Rojas and his in-game moves. I think up until a couple months ago, I thought that he really had figured it out. I think there's been a couple moments where it seems like maybe he's getting exposed, his emphasis on handedness. A couple nights ago, it was Jake Reed in a big inning in the 11th when, Aaron Loop had only thrown, I think, 7 pitches. Marcus Stroman had been taken out after 6. People were wondering, why are you managing like you got a lot of time left? What have you thought of his decision-making of late?
I think there's people behind the scenes that have far too much power in preparation for the game that have never played the game or have played at a minor level, that have too much influence on the game. And I think that's a baseball wide, MLB wide. They try to script games. They're overly cautious with players' health and rest, particularly the bullpen. There's certain times, this is a point of year when everything's on the line. I'm sorry, you got to go all hands on deck. So I think they script games, and I'm sorry, it's September. You go to the whip. You got all winter to rest. And if you don't make it, you got 6 months. If you get in the postseason, you got the World Series, you got 5 months rest. It's time to go to the whip. So I do think that it's unfair. I'm not down there. I mean, this is just my opinion. I don't have any proof of this, and it's what's going around baseball. So I think Louis is the one that's getting thrust up on the cross here, and I think it's unfair. Look at Dave Roberts with the Dodgers. He's going through the same stuff, and he says, after the World Series, I'll take the blame for this." You remember his comments? He said, "I'll take the blame for this," even though, there's decisions being made that if a manager doesn't abide by, they're going to fire him. And that's all there is to it. And the manager is always the one that's there, and he's always the one that's going to take the heat. And the manager can make all the right moves in a game, and it could be from 1 move to 5 moves, and it's the right move, but the players don't execute, and he's a GOAT. Why didn't he do this? Fans would say. Or he can make 1 to 5 bad moves, and the players that he puts in that shouldn't be in that position come through and are successful, and he's a genius. So the manager's always stuck on a rock in a hard place. You can't win unless your team wins. It's all about winning. And the fans are always going to second guess, and that's part of the game. And every manager accepts that. It's that goes with the territory.
Let's do a quick 3-batter rule here, Keith, and we'll start with Lindor. I know Sunday night was an ESPN game, but I'm sure you were watching and you heard some of his comments after the game and the whistling and what have you. What did you think of, 3 home run game against the Yankees? Was that kind of the best scenario for Francisco Lindor to kind of win this fan base back before the end of the season?
It certainly helps. 3 home runs is a great game, and 3 home runs that mattered. Did he have to get angry and be on ESPN to get it going? I mean, he hasn't done much since. He's struggled again. He's just been erratic, but that was certainly a great game and something that he's capable of doing. But we're getting down to the end. It's he's going to hit in the 220s or 2 teens. There's not enough games left for him, and he's got too many at bats to salvage 250, 240, 230. So it's going to be an off year for him, a bad year, no question. To win the fan base back, I don't know. Just perform. This season's almost over, and you got 5 months to reflect before spring training. and get yourself ready for another year. But this one now is pretty much etched. It's advanced enough now where everybody's where they're at, and this is what their season is. And then there's a lot of guys that have not had good seasons that the Mets expected to have good seasons, and that's all there is to it.
Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom, Keith, they're both kind of trying to make their way back. How important do you think it is, because you know the way ball players think and you know the way that teams feel about this situation? How important is it that those two guys specifically pitch in the big leagues before the season ends?
I don't think I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know. I'm not a trainer. I'm not a rehab guy. I don't know. My feeling is to err on the side of caution. And if they're not in it, the Mets aren't in it, there's no need to put them out in harm's way. And if they have to throw, then have them go down and they're in Florida. Have them go to the Winter League and throw a little bit. If they need to throw, they can do it down there. And but to throw them out in game situation, even if you're playing it out, I just don't know. I'm not privy to what their level of their pain is, the level of their injury, where they are in their rehab. But I certainly wouldn't risk any injury.
Well, here's why I was asking you, though, because isn't it going into an off season? If you're declared healthy before the off season starts, don't you go into a normal off season? Whereas if DeGrom or Syndergaard don't pitch in the big leagues this year because they're not deemed to be healthy enough, then don't you go into the off season feeling like, I'm not sure if I'm good to go?
No, I don't think so, because you'll continue your rehab with the team, and that their job, they'll get you ready to go for next year. So that's not. I don't think that's an issue. Okay. The worst thing that can possibly happen is them going out and gearing up, and all of a sudden they re-injure. You don't need
that. Last thing, Edwin Diaz, big save the other night. I think the struggles have continued. Keith, do you see him ever succeeding in a Mets uniform?
Well, I think he's not going to get 30 saves and 30 plus saves. He's just kind of odd that he can have a stretch. He goes through a stretch where he loses the strike zone, and I can't put my finger on it. But I think 30 saves is not a bad year. But that those critical ones that he blew in the last road trip were not in the right time for the team. The team needed to win those games. So that's what you'll look back on. Why that happened, I don't know. The Mets will have to evaluate that, but that's certainly a concern, because you got a closer out there that when you are in September or late August, every game's important. That's when you can't have him have a glitch like he did. Was it three straight, right? I think we got a win in one, blew the save, 2 blown saves, 1 win, and an L. And I think we lost 2 of those 3 games. I'm not sure. Couldn't afford what happened in Washington. That should not have happened. 2-2 out in Washington, and then down in Miami getting beat down there in that series shouldn't have happened. That to me will be the road trip that if they don't make it, that put a dent in them big time. And look what the Braves are doing. The Braves are having a hell of a time too. They're not killing it. The Mets still, if they got Philadelphia. I mean, if they can, well, the wild card's going to be tough. There's a lot of teams in front of them. They've got to sweep Philly.
The Cardinals series was brutal because now you're looking at 5 games. The Cardinals are hot. The Cardinals are the only team playing well.
Yeah, but I'm not sold on the Cardinals bullpen, but I tell you what, they have spirit. They play good defense. They showed you what it was like to how to beat the shift. And they bunched their hits. They got 4 home runs the 3rd game last night. But at the other game, that's besides the point. They scored a lot of runs with just bunching hits, an exposed right side of the infield, and right-handers just punching it right through with men on base. And they put people to school right there. And that's how you stop the shift, because they're just up there, playing percentages. The people that are doing all these, creating all these shifts. They're playing percentages. You play here, he hits the ball here 65% of the time. 65% of the time, we're going to have an out. That's what they're doing. Well, guess what? If you can handle a bat like the Cardinals did, 11 runs. 11 runs. They tore right through us, going the other way. And you got to sit there in the middle of the game and go, okay, I'm going to stay here, not make a change. It's crazy.
All right, Keith. Well, we appreciate it as always, and enjoy the rest of your off day. Enjoy the documentary. I know lots of us at home certainly are, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks' time as the season will be, if not totally wrapped up, almost wrapped up.
Okay, just want to reiterate one thing. When I said the league hated Gary Carter, that was a bad choice of words. Okay, that was too strong a word. They disliked Gary. But
it's a kinder word.
Hates a very strong word, and words
it is
count.
A strong word.
Okay,
it is a strong word, but I think everyone who watches knew exactly what you meant, and that it wasn't coming from a place of, I don't know, whatever you're worried about. Reminder to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. We appreciate it. Give us a rate and review as well. Another reminder that the Shea Anything podcast is brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on only on Verizon. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk to you next week with a very special guest.